Hello, everybody. My name is Austin Cook, and today we'll be taking a look at the media aesthetics that are found in Season 1, Episode 1 of The Last of Us TV show on HBO. This story, The Last of Us, is about a man, Joel Miller, who loses his daughter on the first day of the cordyceps infection outbreak. Throughout this season, he has to confront his trauma and grief while he smuggles a young girl named Ellie Williams across the country because of her immunity to the virus. This story is about fatherhood, found family, and the lengths people will go for survival and for one another. Of course, this show couldn't be made without some of the people behind the scenes. To start off, we have Neil Druckmann. He's actually the creator of the Last of Us franchise. The Last of Us originated as a video game back in 2013, and he wanted to adapt it to a TV show so that more people could see the story unfold. And he did that with the help of Craig Mazin, who directed Chernobyl, hit series. um, he co-wrote some of the episodes and directed a few of the episodes as well. Senia Serrata was the main cinematographer for this series, and she does some amazing camera work in this, especially in this episode. There is a one shot that we'll be talking about later on that I am a huge fan of. Timothy A. Good does a really good job with some of the editing that's found as well. There's a lot of good editing choices, a lot of cut on actions, a lot of online matches that I really enjoy while watching this episode. David Fleming does an amazing job at composing some of the really intense music that's found in this series. It really helps with the intensity of some of these scenes. And Gustavo Santaolalla composes some of the lighter tone music as well, and helped, he actually composed some of the music for the video games as well. So it's nice to see that he's back for this adaptation as well. And we will get right into the first scene that's shown to us, the interview. We start off with a good example of objective time as we're slapped in the face with this giant 1968, 35 years before part of the story takes place. And we see two more good examples of objective time throughout the rest of this episode. This scene also uses a warm color palette and warm lighting. I guess it's supposed to represent the nostalgia of the 60s, as that's not where the story is taking place, but rather in the past. And this scene also, one of the few times that this series uses practical lighting, as it takes place in a studio and not really outside where the rest of the series takes place. It's also a good example of soft lighting, as we can see over here. We don't see a lot of shadows on the actors' faces in the scene, which I feel can further express the emotions that the actors are trying to show in this scene. And there's also a really good example of secondary motion as the professor, or as, sorry, as the camera moves as the professor talks about possible fungi evolution and how it can affect humanity in the future, which is also to foreshadow in some of the series as well. Now we have Outbreak Day, the day. We have the second example of objective time that shows up when we're slapped in the face with Giant 2003, the best year, of course. um, After that disappears, we go into the scene that takes place in Sarah's bedroom. Uh, there's a lot of pink. Her curtains are pink, her walls are pink, she's even wearing pink. And I feel that the color pink represents innocence, not only Sarah's innocence for what's to come later on, but also the world's innocence that will soon be broken when the outbreak truly happens. We get a really good over the shoulder perspective as Joel and Sarah talk at the table during family breakfast on Joel's birthday, and they bicker back and forth and do some playful banter. This is also a really good example of diegetic sound, as Sarah's making breakfast and she's listening to music on the radio, which we don't see that often, as modern technology isn't used a whole lot in this series. There's a good example of eyeline match cut as well, where Sarah's on top of the stairs and she has to steal money from Joel to go fix Joel's watch for his birthday, and she has to make sure she doesn't get caught. And she looks down the stairs, and the camera cuts to the stairs, and nobody's there. Lastly, there's a good example of a horizontal image of Sarah standing outside of the shop where she fixed Joel's watch. I feel like it shows the last sense of balance before the world truly goes to hell. And now we move towards the evening. Sarah comes home and visits the neighbor's house. The neighbor has this old woman who usually is sitting blankly, staring forward, and not really doing anything. But as Sarah, in the top right over here, goes to go look through some movies, we see that she is acting strangely in the background as she's out of focus, which is a good example of selective focus. There's also a good example of a motion vector shortly after the scene where Sarah's leaving her neighbor's house and she stops in the middle of the sidewalk and looks up and sees several fighter jets heading towards Austin, Texas, where she was previously that day. This is to kind of represent the impending doom that's about to come. There's also a good example of a cut on action when Sarah goes to sleep and as Joel leaves the room, the door shuts and it cuts to Sarah waking up to some noises that are coming from outside that you don't really hear in a neighborhood. She hears sirens and explosions in the distance and the neighbor's dog barking. And this scene also has really good cameo lighting where she's mainly covered in shadows as she goes through her neighbor's house in that evening and discovers the horrors that are soon to infect this world. And then we have Outbreak Day. Hell is fully let loose as infected people begin to run through the streets. Joel and Tommy take Sarah in the truck and try to leave the suburbs, and they end up having to cut through this small town. There's this really good example of a shot reverse shot as it's mainly Tommy and Joel, but Sarah cuts in every once in a while to speak. But Tommy and Joel try to strategize where they're going to go and how they're going to get there and how they're going to keep each other safe. It's also a really good example of a one shot. It lasts for about 2 minutes and it takes place entirely within the car and it's set next to Sarah, but I feel like, in my personal opinion, that it's also Sarah's perspective as when she's looking forward, the camera's looking forward, and when she's looking behind her, the camera's also looking behind her as chaos just unfolds around them. And the scene eventually ends with a plane crashing behind them and it flipping the truck. This scene also has really good mood with the sound as we hear people screaming in the streets as they're being attacked or trying not to get ran over. And the music as well just continues to just get more and more and more intense until it finally ends with that plane crash. And lastly, we have dialogue. Dialogue's a really easy choice in any film or TV show to choose for an aesthetic to pick out, but I picked this scene specifically where Joel is holding his dead daughter in his arms and he keeps calling her baby girl, trying to calm her and saying that everything will be okay, even though she is lying dead in his arms. And Pedro Pascal puts on a really powerful performance in this scene, and I feel like he should get more recognition for it. And then we move to post-outbreak. We get the last example of objective time as we're hit with the 20 years later on the screen. And the rest of this series tends to use natural and available lighting as a lot of it does take place outside during the day. There are a few parts that use overhead lighting, but it's so far and few between. At the end of the episode, we have a really good reestablishing shot as the characters walk into Boston, and it shows us what Boston looks like 20 years later after the infection uh, has ravaged the world. We also get one of the few times that non-diegetic sound is used in this series. As the camera is panning up, showing us Boston, we hear music playing from the 90s, and we also hear the disgusting guttural clicking noises from the infected that are roaming Boston 20 years after the outbreak. Very horrifying sounds. And that's it. Thank you for watching or listening. I would, if you haven't seen the series yet, I would 1000% recommend it. You are definitely going to feel very powerful emotions watching this show. Have a good one.